Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we've got a very special guest. Her name is Alicia Jones, and Alicia helps transform the health and lives of women over 50 through her fitness and weight loss strategies. She's appeared on various health and wellness television programs and produced and hosted Health Matters and The View Health and Wellness on Rogers TV. She's got a BA in kinesiology and adds many certifications on her list of qualifications, including National Coach of Canada, Advanced Sport Nutrition, Certified Group Fitness, and many more. Alicia, welcome to the show. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to dive into everything over 50.
I love it. I love it. Well, I happen to be over 50, so it's a good to hear. I don't happen to be a woman, but I happen to be married to one and have a lot of them in my life. So I'm certainly interested in where you go, and I definitely like your business, which carries the same name as my podcast.
Yes, Alicia Jones, Healthy Living, and you being Healthy Living. So we're all connected here.
I love it. I love it. So why don't you give us a little, I'd like to hear about what brings people to their area of expertise. Many people have had some kind of a transformative incident or experience in their life, and some people just live in their dreams. So tell us how you got to this place.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the transformative experience for me to get into health and wellness, that's very different of how I got into working only with the over 50 population and the aging population. So I think my story into getting into fitness is very much like many. I was working in a job. I was actually in the hotel industry at the time, and I ended up going through a bit of a depression and a lot of anxiety. Wasn't sure about what I was going to do in the direction I was going to take. And so I ended up going to a gym and exercising, and it happened to be a great community. It was a YMCA here in Canada, and it was such a great community that I felt like that was my place. Every time I was working out or doing some form of fitness, I felt happy. I felt like that was where I wanted to be. And that's how I got into fitness to begin with.
Nice.
But then years later, as I was, I was working in these box gyms, and at the same time I was studying kinesiology. There was this huge shift that happened for me when my mother decided to do the CN Tower climb with me. And so this is kind of where the over 50 comes in, because growing up, I grew up with a mom. She was a single mother to my brother and to myself. And my grandmother was the main caregiver for us because my mother was out working all the time.
Okay.
My grandmother grew up in a time when smoking was considered the norm. She was a nurse and she smoked, right? And back then you could smoke in the doctor's office, in the car without seatbelts. Yeah, everywhere. So it was the norm for her. But by the time she got to the age of a grandmother and taking care of us, she wasn't able to. She had COPD, cardiovascular disease. And so we often had to get somebody to come in at the same time my grandmother was there to take care of us.
Wow.
And for me, like, I'm sure you've heard this, the relationship with grandparents and their grandkids, it's really, really special. And I didn't want anybody else taking care of me except for my grandmother.
I'm a grandpa. I know all about it.
That's it, right? It's all the fun.
Yeah, exactly. All the fun and none of the work.
Exactly. Yeah. But you need to have that energy for them. You need to have that well-being. Yeah, absolutely. And so my grandmother wasn't really able to do that. And then coming to this time with the CN Tower climb that I was speaking of, my mother led a very different life. She, did her Weight Watchers, her, fitness classes.
Right.
She didn't really drink that much. And so I had all of these clients that were older women, and they were saying to me, Alicia, I'm not going to do the CN Tower climb with you because I'm too old to be doing it. So recruited the mother.
That's quite a barrier there, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So recruited the mother who was 72. And my slogan for that was, if she's 72, so can you.
I love it.
And that was the turning point for me. I was like, I knew I wanted to only work with aging population. You kind of see that direction you can take. You can take the direction where maybe you don't even really understand something you're doing isn't healthy for you,
Right.
but as we age, you could be the grandma that's, lying in bed or sitting on the couch.
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
My wife follows a lady. I don't remember what her name is, but I think she's 80 years old and she's this fitness buff. And she's out there exercising and, looking better than most people half her age. And, what an inspiration, right? I mean,
Mhm.
her mom's 96 and she doesn't take care of herself, but she's got this genetics that just lets her outwalk everybody around, and somehow she just got the good cards. But you can see the difference where sometimes you got to really work for it, but you can.
Yes, absolutely. And genes definitely play a
Oh
part.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't argue with that. Well, so when you decided to go this route,
Mhm.
what what was how did you move it forward?
So I ended up opening my own business, and from there, Alicia Jones Healthy Living took off.
Nice.
And, that's so all of my programs are geared towards women over 50. And I think there are a lot of commonalities because it is very different to train as a woman, or it should be, than it is for a man. Like
Sure.
we have we go through perimenopause, menopause, those hormones really shift. It's like a second puberty
Oh
almost.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you guys go through andropause, but it's
Right.
not quite the same. Have you felt that?
I am also recovering from cancer right now. So I think that overshadowed all the andropause stuff, but I've raised up and I'm, the finishing strokes of killing this thing off. And look at me, I'm still out here talking to you, doing it. And no surgery, no radiation was able to really beat the hell out of this thing. And so I think a lot of it, there's some people that get really extreme hormonal um, changes that affect them dramatically.
Mhm.
I think mostly it's what do we do with it? We get a
Mm,
little depression, we get a little bad luck, we get a little injury, we get a little sick, whatever. What do we do with it, right? Some
mhm,
people lay in bed and complain and say, I don't know, I'm stuck. Other people say, wow, I got to figure this out and move forward. And so me, I
mhm,
love my life and I want to, share the things I learned. So I turned it into my full-time job. And now, that's a big part of this podcast is I share my journey with people and teach them how to find their answers, not just do what I did, but
mhm,
how to go and find those answers. Because everybody's experience is so unique, as you find out.
mhm.
Everybody, you can take a group of people, 1,000 people, all going through a 10-year cycle where they go through perimenopause, menopause, and watch them all. And there'll probably be a dozen different groups of categories of types of reactions and
Yeah.
symptoms and even, what they did about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to your point as well, some of it is genetics, some of it is environment, what you've been exposed to, or how
Sure.
you take care of yourself. There are a whole bunch of different factors that come together
Right.
also to decide on how you experience perimenopause.
100%. I think that your spirit and your mind have more to do with it than all the other things. Your genetics you can't get away from, but what decisions you make and how you feel, like what's
Mm,
motivating you, those things you have control over. And I think that they can become more powerful than the actual experience itself sometimes. Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber only episodes that we offer to the supporters. And for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I Don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think it comes down to, positivity is one thing, but it comes down to, have you heard of Tasha Eurich? She talks about the 3 C's. It's we need in our lives to have a level of confidence, so confidence even in that you can beat this thing or you can,
Mhm.
you can deal with the symptoms of perimenopause.
Right,
We need to have that level of choice
right.
and community. And those are the three
Okay.
C's.
I haven't heard of her specifically with that, but I totally agree with that.
hmm Yeah, and then each of those come into different place. So for example, if you feel like you have really bad symptoms when you're going through perimenopause and you believe you have no choice in it, then
Right.
you're more likely to suffer depression. That area of your life is more restricted, and so your health is going to suffer as a
Sure.
consequence.
Right. You give yourself fewer options because you don't see them.
That's right. You don't see them. That's it. I think that's it. It's a part of the mindset of how can we start to shift our beliefs and how can we create community and how can we nurture our confidence? Because
What's
we can also you can also feel like you're really great at something, as in, like I love to exercise. It
right,
doesn't mean that internally I could have this really great confidence overall in my well-being or my life. And so
right.
it's also really important to reflect and understand where we have these certain areas. Where are we confident internally and where are we struggling?
Well,
You know?
community is key for that. And that's actually one of the really fundamental reasons for this podcast is building a community so that listeners can come in and find people that they connect with and the guests and can find people that, agree and want to participate with the things they do. And ultimately, there's sort of a global community developing, not in a formal way, but it's happening. And I think community offers a couple of different things. One, it offers possibility to people who might not see it if they were by themselves. But two, it keeps you in check. If you think you're doing better than you are and you're walking around, confidence is great, but if it's not built on reality, sometimes it
Mm,
can cause you problems. And somebody can come along and do something with you, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm not so good after all. Maybe I got to put some
mhm.
work in.
Yeah.
And both sides of that can be important.
And I also think with community, it's about understanding you're not alone. For example,
Right.
you've told your story, and I
Mhm.
think we can get so much in our own head that we're the only ones that feel this way. We're the
Oh,
only
yeah.
ones that experience this. So to hear those other stories, that it,
100%.
yeah, really makes us realize that we're not in this alone, whatever the case may be.
And the truth is, none of us are alone. Everything we've done, a million people have gone through.
Mhm.
The world's been around for a long time. There's been people on this planet for a long time. Probably everything that can be done's been done in those ways. We're developing things, but all the feelings, all the emotions, all the depressions and joys, we've all been through it all. And it's
Mhm.
just a matter of finding the people that maybe could share that with you so you don't, you know, it's funny, like even with joys, people do great things or accomplish something wonderful, but it's really kind of empty unless you have somebody you can share it with. It's
Absolutely.
like I
Yeah.
caught this great fish all by myself out in the stream. Nobody saw it. I let it go. And what am I going to do? Tell somebody about it? Maybe take a picture. It's beautiful for me and I get a lot out of it. But when you're with somebody and they get to share that with you,
Mhm.
whatever it is, it makes it manyfold better. So community is
Mhm.
key in all of this for sure.
Oh, I totally agree. And that can even be online, which,
Oh yeah.
that's because I think some people find it, isolating that they're doing things on the computer, but there's so many great communities out
Oh
there
yeah.
that are online. Yeah.
That this information age is a double-edged sword. I tell people everything's a double-edged sword. I mean the treatments I've been taking, the natural ones, the Western ones, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. And
hmm
it's up to me to find that balance and that stack to make sure that that's the thing best for me. But if I did too much on one thing or focused too much on one thing, it would have a detrimental effect. And I think it's like that with everything and information. Like, when I started studying herbs, it was, in the early 80s and there was no computers. I went to old
Mm-hmm.
used bookstores and bought seeds and learned myself, found a community and found old people that taught me stuff. And then eventually computers came along and now look at it today. type something in and you're a whiz in no time.
Mhm.
And both sides have their strengths and both sides have their weaknesses. And, with all the information, literally, I can learn anything that can be learned. But when you got to go and hunt for it, you learn it in a maybe a little different way. And maybe it
Mhm.
sticks to you a little better. Maybe your experience is a little deeper and maybe I could teach it better. I mean, it's hard to say, but
Yeah, I think that we're also with the technology age, we're a little bit good at everything. But
right,
there's only a few, for example, you're a real expert in herbs, right?
right.
That is your specialty. That's what you're great at. I had all my textbooks. I'm really great at physiology and nutrition and exercise, all of
Hmm.
those fun things.
Right,
But on the online, I'm a little bit good at my self-help or self-love, like
right.
we were talking about the book, or things like that. So we're more spread out in our knowledge instead of
Hmm.
niche down for certain
Right.
things, I find.
I totally agree. And I
Mhm.
think with AI, people are getting more and more that way. And I don't know, we'll see where it goes. I think that there's always going to be people committed to truth and to sharing information and really
Mhm.
being focused on the reality of things.
Mhm.
And we'll get through it all, I think.
Yeah. And it definitely is something as well where online you have to be careful with the information you're given. You
Right.
do have to research, and it's not just about this simplistic spread of information that you have.
Right.
You really have to dive deep and find out, is it even factual, or is it some,
Exactly.
influencer telling you to do something?
You have to source your sources and go
Mhm.
back all the way as far as you can and see who's paying for it and see, it all right. So it's a different challenge that you have instead of finding the information. And even when I was, going to old used bookstores, I got 100 herbal books and they don't all agree with each other because they're written from
Mm,
different points of view, different locations in the world, and people have different experiences with different plants.
yeah.
And so you always have to be a critical thinker. And I think that
Mhm.
that's a key to it all is, you know, we seek knowledge and truth and then we want to share it. So, really focus on that and, check yourself and double check yourself. I think it helps a lot. So your program, it sounds to me like it's a personal trainer type program or it's a group program as well. So tell us how it works.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the word personal trainer only
Okay.
because I feel like I remember the days because I've been in this industry for a very long time.
Right.
So I remember the days when it was the hulky men inside,
Okay.
the gym kind of huff
Right.
puffing, and
Gotcha.
the women would feel really intimidated. I think we're still getting along, we're coming a long way from that now, but
Okay.
I consider myself more a coach or an expert in women over 50.
All right.
And my program is Over 50 Fit and Fabulous. And what it does is it talks about the nutrition side of things because the food and the fitness formula shift with
Right.
age. So we talk about the food and we talk about how that shifts and we talk about the fitness side. And the big component with the fitness side is adding in strength training because
Hmm.
especially with age, I think a lot of us women have been, kind of almost brainwashed into the Jane Fonda, let's do a cardio
Right.
workout, yay, put our leg warmers on. But really, we're missing out on that piece of enhancing lean muscle because that declines with age. We really
Yeah.
need to be focusing in on that also for bone density as
Right.
well.
Yeah. I think you're spot on.
Mhm.
As I get older, I've been doing a lot of biohacking and, fitness seeking. And, I lost 50 pounds about 8 years ago.
Oh,
And that was the
congratulations.
beginning of my journey before I got my diagnosis. So I got super healthy and then found out I had an obstacle to overcome. But meanwhile, I've learned so much about, nutrition and fitness and, strength training, resistance training. And then you talk a lot about HIIT training. Um, that becomes as you get older, like you said, we lose muscle mass, we lose bone density, and a lot of
And we lose our
people,
lung capacity. That's another big one, the lung
yeah,
capacity. And that's a very, very big predictor of quality of life. It's called our VO2 max, how we use oxygen in our body when we're doing these exercises. And that declines with age. No matter what, we can't just keep this magic number as high, high, high as it was in our 20s. But the
right,
thing is that we also don't use that percentage of it. Like we don't ever use our max of our VO2 max. So we can still improve quite a lot and can always maintain a really great quality of life. And you can only do that through things like high intensity interval training.
I totally agree. I've gone through a lifetime of lung problems, and
Mhm.
I have had, asthma and an allergy to aspergillus, which has given me chronic pneumonia. And so I've gone through, every kind of thing. And I ultimately came up with a treatment that worked for me. And the doctors really couldn't do it without steroids. And steroids have this long-term negative side effect that I wasn't willing to go through. But the last time they tested me, they said I had lung capacity of about 70%, but it's operating at 115%.
Oh, that's
And so,
amazing.
so I've been able to take what I have, in spite of the scarring, in spite of the damage that has happened to me for a lifetime of this, and still got it to work as good as it probably ever could. And so I
That's amazing.
living
See, it
proof of
goes
the
to
thing.
show when you take care of yourself what you can do.
It is. It's totally true. And I think, we have a lot of guests that talk about longevity and telomeres and all these different, I call it biohacking, but it's just, answers, finding solutions.
Mhm.
And there's so many things they all have in common, and that's one of the reasons I love to have a really diverse, subject matter out here, because everybody kind of dives deep into one little thing. And oxygen's a big part of my cancer treatment.
Mhm.
Cancer doesn't like oxygen, and healthy cells love it. And so, guess what? I'm gonna give myself as much of it as I can possibly
Mhm.
give, and it helps the healthy cells and weakens the cancer cells. So there's so much to all of that. So tell us about, the high intensity interval training. I've heard a lot of things, both positive and negative, about it, and it's just like everything. Like every single thing, there's going to be
Mhm.
somebody that says, I got this great answer. And there's going to be somebody else that says, well, yeah, except for your ligaments and your connective tissue or
Mhm.
whatever, their beef is. And like I said, everything's a double-edged sword. So tell
It
us
is.
about how you
Yeah.
navigate this program.
Yes. And when it comes to high intensity interval training, I'd love to know what the negatives are because there's always a workaround. There's
Right.
never one solution. So, for example, all I care about with high intensity interval training is that you're getting into a place where you can no longer have a conversation. You're high in your breathing, and it's very, very hard to breathe. And you
Pushing to the
only need
point.
to be
Yeah.
there, yeah, for a little while. You don't need to be there for a long period of time. It really does depend on where you are and where you're starting in your high intensity interval training journey.
Right.
It and it doesn't need to be long. So some people are doing these classes that are high intensity interval training classes. They're an hour long. Well,
Right.
you are not
It's like
doing
running a marathon. Of course, you're going to
that.
destroy your body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for you to actually have obtained that very high intensity, if you're doing that for a full 1 hour class,
Yeah.
I can guarantee you are not doing proper high intensity interval training.
Right.
You cannot
You're
sustain
not
it for a
pushing
very long
yourself hard
time.
enough, and then you're not getting that full value of it. I mean, the whole point is to get yourself to where you can't do anything else but that, and then you let go.
That's it. And just to show how safe it is, though, there was one, like I go to the conferences each year for fitness, and there was a medical doctor that came on, and he was a heart surgeon. And all of his patients, once they've gone through heart surgery, automatically get high intensity interval training
Wow.
because what happens is once you've gone through, and I'm not talking about every type of surgery
Right,
here,
right,
it was
right.
what he specified in. Once you stand up, if you are really weak or tired and you haven't worked out, from
Hmm.
walking from one chair to another chair that might be just a couple of meters away, your
Hmm.
heart rate's going to rise really high to get to that chair.
Right,
That's high intensity interval training. You sit down
right,
on the chair. And that was literally all this man did. He had a
right,
room full of chairs, and a part of the rehab process was getting the individual to go from one chair to the next and sit down. And when they felt ready, go on to the next. Going
right,
up a flight of stairs. For a lot of people, you go up a flight of stairs, you will feel totally out of breath, depending. I don't personally because I work on that, but
right, right.
if you might go up a flight of stairs, especially if you're new to
Oh
fitness.
yeah. Uphill climb is one of the quickest way to wear yourself out. Go up to a high altitude and do it, and you'll just like, woo.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. See, so there are these ways. It really does depend on where you're starting from and where you're going. But the main things that high intensity interval training do is it creates something called EPOC, which is excess post exercise oxygen consumption. So
Nice.
basically, our metabolism has to speed up to get us to this balanced state, homeostasis. Our body loves being in balance
Yeah.
in this homeostasis state. And so when that balance is off, we will do all of the physiology in our body. Everything in our body is going to do everything in its power to get back to the balanced state. And so to
Right.
do that, you rev up your metabolic rate, you're replenishing the oxygen. And then on top of it, the body's like, this might not be a once in a while thing. This might
Right.
happen more often. So we
Yeah.
need to adapt the body to a level that is going to allow us to handle this. So there are acute
Absolutely.
responses or chronic responses to exercise. But even
Hmm.
one bout, you get that acute response. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so there are benefits to it, and it's really beneficial for a lot of the women. They want to lose weight when they come to me. Well, you going on your
You
nice
will.
walk is fabulous if
Yeah.
it for psychological reasons, but it's not going to help you lose weight. What's going to help you is the weight training, which is going to help enhance lean muscle. It's highly metabolically active, so you burn more calories, and it's the high intensity interval training. And
Nice.
I love that because it's not just for weight loss. We need our lean mass for quality of life, bone density for quality of life, and lung capacity for quality of life. So it is the magic two combo.
So briefly, I knew this was going to happen. We're going to blast through our time really quickly, but nutrition's such a big part of this.
Mhm.
And with women over 50, what do you think if there's, a couple of really key points you could bring out? What's your take on that?
My number one thing is overall, in general, women tend to eat less protein than
Mhm.
men. And I think it's because there's this idea that it has to be meat. Like you need to have this huge slab of meat on your plate. And I'm not saying that. If you're vegetarian or you prefer to have plant-based sources, by all means go ahead, or you're more into fish, by all means go ahead. But you do need to prioritize protein, especially as a woman. Estrogen levels drop, and estrogen is anabolic, which helps grow muscle. It helps us with our bone density. And so when we don't have that ability to help us grow muscle like we did when the estrogen was high, we need other ways of doing that. And protein synthesis also goes down. So our ability to use protein that comes in, we don't
Mhm.
use it as efficiently to help us grow the muscle. So
Got it.
eating a proper amount of protein is going to help us maintain lean muscle, grow lean muscle if we're lifting weights, and
Hmm.
it's also going to help us with that protein synthesis. The more we have in our body, the more possibility we can absorb some because we've got it there.
Got it. All right. Now, I always like to hear, so many great guests have come and been so transformative for so many people. I always like to hear kind of a story of transformation. Why don't you share one of the classics you have of somebody you've helped in a dramatic way?
I love to talk about Judy. She came to me at 65 because she retired and she
Okay.
wanted to be healthy, and we just did a simple fitness test, and she wasn't even able to do a spreading of the leg lunge. So one leg
Wow.
in front of the other because her balance was so off. She wasn't able to do that. She had three little stairs in her house. I asked her just to go up one of the three, and she would get out of breath at about a minute and a half.
Wow.
Now she's in her 70s. She is doing full power weight training.
Nice.
Oftentimes she's my guinea pig. I'll say, will you come in and be the volunteer to show people that at any age you can do this?
Love it.
She does plyometrics. She's jumping. She does these huge hike tours with her friends. So she went to Utah. She did the I can't even remember what the Alps. She's done all of these trips. Right now
Wow.
she's in Italy. She's
Nice.
doing a whole bunch of hiking trips in Italy. So her retirement has turned into this amazing, powerful strength building fun with travel and events
Love it.
because she started weight training and taking care of herself at 65.
That is beautiful. That
Yeah.
is beautiful. Well, Alicia, why don't you, if you could wrap up everything, if you had, one elevator pitch to throw out there to say, hey, this is the message I have for you, what would that be?
It's never too late. No, you are not too old, and you can get started with some really simple weight training and not even high intensity interval training, but simple weight training and some simple nutrition shifts that can really transform your life.
I love it. And maybe as important, you're going to find plenty of people over 50 in our demographic listening to this show. They're going to go, how do I get a hold of this lady? So how does somebody reach you?
Well, I can give you the link to my free masterclass, which talks about the 3-phase food and fitness formula that every woman needs to go through, and we go in depth on what to do.
Beautiful.
And my website is aliciajoneshealthyliving.com, and check out my YouTube because that's where I'm on most, and there's a lot of free videos, free workouts, and free information.
Wonderful. Well, as I offered before, I think we have lots more to talk about. I'd love to have you back on the show, but we're grateful that you joined us, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine. I want to thank all the listeners for your support, and we will see you next time. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.